session entitled Shining a Light on the BRE, the conference delegates heard firstly from Annabel Graham-Paul, a barrister from Francis Taylor Buildings, whose presentation examined the implications of two court judgments where the court had quashed the grant of planning permission on the basis of deficiencies with the approach to assessing the effects of the new development on daylight in existing adjoining residential properties. The conference then received a presentation from Gordon Ingram, a rights of light, daylight and sunlight surveyor and equity partner at GIA. He covered the limitations of the numerical tests in the BRE's Guide to Good Practice, explored a radiance-based exercise, and also, with the assistance of Jason Hawthorn from VU.CITY, demonstrated how new technology can help to explain daylight, sunlight, and the overshadowing implications of development, and set these considerations in a broader, relevant context. If we are to densify our cities in order to better protect our countryside and promote the use of public transport, the planning balance requires that considerable care needs to be taken to avoid thwarting denser development just because of technical breaches to the BRE guidelines. Annabel.
Hi, Mary.
What is the most important message to take away from the judgments in the Rainbird and Geary cases, in your view?
Okay, well, in both Rainbird and Geary, two developments were quashed because the court felt that the planning authority had been significantly misled by the daylight reports that had been submitted by the developer. And with a technical subject like daylight and indeed sunlight, quite often local planning authorities don't have, and members don't have, that technical expertise in-house. So they will take the results on trust from what's presented to them. So this really stresses the importance that consultants need to be totally open and frank about what the results are, even if they feel that they don't help promote their development, and they need to present a very, very objective picture of those to the planning authority. Glossing over results with nice words or seeking to stress some things more than another can do ultimately more harm than good for a development if you end up with your resulting planning permission being quashed.
Thank you. Jason, can you put into words and describe the new technology and how that might assist decision makers and landowners, designers and the community?
Of course. So VU.CITY is an accurate three-dimensional version of a model that is fluent, so everybody can use it in terms of move around and understand the spaces that we're talking about. It means that a lot of the calculations and understanding those in a 3D space and having the experience means it's much easier for everybody to relate to the information we're talking about and being able to see that. And I think that's probably the genuine aim of what we're trying to do, is to gain a level of transparency over these numeric criteria and understanding what that means from a human experience point of view.
Gordon, what in your experience are the most important factors in considering the adequacy of daylight and sunlight when numerical guidelines are breached?
The context is always the most important factor, and context must be what are the macro issues which have to be considered at the time. So, for example, the fact that United Nations see that not just in the UK but cities across the world will have more people living in them, and that density is going to become a way of life, and increased densification will become a way of life, necessarily means that daylighting standards are going to have to be breached on a more regular basis. So the context of the development needs to take into place that, therefore, what other factors, such as what amenities are going to be available generally to citizens, and it's not a race to the bottom, but it's a question of what level of acceptability we can pursue.
Thank you. Can I also ask you, please, to just explain the radiance test and how does that assist in decision making?
Radiance is a much more detailed level of daylight and sunlight analysis, and it helps go towards the experiential. People often ask, well, will this mean that I'm in darkness and I have to have my lights on during the day most of the time? Or when would I have to switch them on? Radiance is a level of sophistication which can start to understand that and tell you those answers. So the purpose of it is to give a much more informed and clearer answer, although it is a technical form of analysis.
And can you help us on the new EU standards? Is this something that we should be concerned about?
It's not something you need to be concerned about. The initial concern was that the standard would be significantly higher than the existing standards that we already have, which are quite high now. But actually, the BRE have created a fresh annex for the UK, which keeps it at the same level of standards that we currently have. It's only for proposed developments, not about impacts to neighbours, and therefore it's not something new or different which will affect us.
And Gordon, finally, in simple terms, what's the difference between a right to light and the new impact of development on existing residents' enjoyment of daylight as a material planning consideration?
The right of light is basically related to private law. You enjoy most commonly a right to light through continuous enjoyment for 20 years. Therefore, buildings actually gain rights and they relate to those particular properties, and it's not subject or related to planning law.
Annabel, I have one further question for you. What does the July 2019 Planning Practice Guidance offer in its new chapter entitled The Effective Use of Land in Terms of Daylight?
Yes, well, as Gordon's just said, context really is everything with this, and that's been recognised now in new additions into the MPPG. And the MPPG now makes expressly clear that in areas of high density, in city centre locations, lower daylight and sunlight levels at some windows may be unavoidable if new developments are to be in keeping with their surroundings. So there it is now in government guidance, and express acknowledgement that you're not always going to meet strict standards in an urban location.
Thank you all so much for your very valuable contributions to the conference this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.